I'm Rick Harp. This is your APTN News Brief for Thursday, February 8th. We begin with concerns about policing in Northern Ontario, a hot topic at the Nishnawbe Aski Nation Chiefs Assembly this week in Thunder Bay, a city whose police force was criticized by Neskantanga Chief Christopher Munias for its response to a missing 14-year-old girl. A Neskantanga member found dead days later.
Right throughout that time, we were doing our searches. On December 16th, I went to this area where this youth was missing, where she went missing. And no police there. Nobody responded. Nobody came to see us. Nobody came to see the family. That's how we get treated here in Thunder Bay. There's no response, lack of response. And there's not only in Neskantanga. It's almost for every community that comes here. Every citizen from them that comes here. We get mistreated. There's no response. We don't get the respect. What are you prepared to do, the Thunder Bay Police, to make sure they are accountable and responsible?
Ontario's Deputy Solicitor General, Mario Di Tommaso, was at the Assembly of 49 Chiefs. He told Chief Munias that a new entity, the Office of the Inspector General of Policing, will be up and running by April 1st, an office whose powers will be substantial.
So in the situation that you described, Thunder Bay is not providing said service adequately and effectively, and it is not acceptable. So based on information that the Inspector General of Policing would have, that Inspector General could launch an inspection and an investigation on Thunder Bay Police and then issue orders to the Thunder Bay Police Services Board and to the Thunder Bay Police Services to improve service delivery with respect to the complaint that has been made.
Turning to a story we first brought you in 2019, that of Stephen Morin. Sexually abused in the Alberta child welfare system for almost 5 years, he would later go on to develop a drug habit, drugs he'd sometimes steal from pharmacies. But as Chris Stewart reports, a big life change for Morin seems to have turned things around.
Stephen Morin did not have a happy childhood. At just 5 years old, he was repeatedly sexually abused by his foster father until he was 9 years old. A foster father who had a previous conviction for possession of child pornography. Morin carried the emotional trauma into adulthood. He sued the Alberta government for his decades of suffering. But the process of legal action forced him to relive the sexual assaults all over again.
I went through abuse, and the PTSD that I was going through and the traumas from opening up Pandora's box, all that flooding into my life. It's no different than a soldier coming back from the war.
The trauma led Morin to turn to hard drugs, methamphetamine, and crack cocaine. At the beginning of 2022, at the lowest point in his life, he robbed 6 Edmonton pharmacies to feed his addiction. He was not immediately caught. In May of 2022, he settled out of court with the province. His share was $312,000. Most of that money went into feeding his drug habit. A bad business investment took the rest. In February of 2023, he was arrested for the pharmacy robberies, facing 18 charges. Morin has pled guilty to 2 counts of robbery and is awaiting sentencing. He could spend 2 years in prison. Morin is hoping for house arrest and probation. He says the birth of his daughter has changed his life. He is now clean, with another girl on the way. He has a job, a truck, and a home. He says the robberies were due to PTSD from his trauma combined with addiction.
That was not me. That was a person that was lost, mentally and spiritually. The soul was not in that person no longer during those events. And 3/4, if not 99% of these events that took place, I can't even recall a single second within any minute of any of these events that took place. I can't remember a single moment.
He says he regrets the mental anguish he caused the pharmacists from his actions.
I'm disgusted with myself, to be honest with you, because I hurt someone. I know how PTSD affects an individual, and when a person like a pharmacist goes through what they go through, like those events, I can't even find the words to say, because there's no words to apologize to them. There's no words I can find. It's words are just words. Actions speak louder than words. And I wish I could just, if they are watching this, I just really want them to know That I really am sorry. And I hope that they still find their enjoyment with their career. Okay.
Morin is waiting for his Glad You report to be finished before he will be sentenced. He's ready to do his time. Then it will be up to him to maintain his sobriety. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Chiefs of Treaty 4 territory in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba have launched a class action lawsuit against the federal government. They say Canada has not lived up to some of the terms of that treaty. Signed in 1874, those terms include annual payments of $5 to members of each signatory band. But chiefs argued those payments should have reflected inflation over the past 150 years. Nishnawbe Anishinaabe Nation Chief Derek Nepanek says the suit is meant to benefit individual band members.
As far as we're concerned, it's a broken treaty promise. The $5 is merely symbolic today because you can't buy anything with $5. And it certainly does not create, an economic backstop for Indigenous families who, continue to have significant challenges within the treaty relationship that we're supposed to have.
And finally, Bill C-53, the bill meant to federally recognize certain Métis governments, continues to make its way through the legislative process, most recently the scrutiny of the Indigenous and Northern Affairs Committee. With more, Rachel May.
Every Métis and the governments that are representing our people have a right to be able to determine their own future in regards to what they would like to see.
Bill C-53 allows certain Métis governments in Alberta, Ontario, and Saskatchewan to give effect to treaties with these governments and make amendments to other acts. President of Métis Nation Saskatchewan, Glenn McCallum, says it was a long road to get here.
Always goes back to Riel in regards to what he believed in 1885 when the last stand was made in Batoche, believing that his people were self-determining, which he was right, correct. And to believe that we can govern ourselves, which he was right.
McCallum said that this bill addresses jurisdiction and citizenship. He hopes that the government sees the importance of sitting down with each individual province to figure out their unique needs.
That is so key, that the honor of the Crown and the responsibility and obligation of the government is to be able to work directly with us.
Bill C-53 will now return to the House of Commons for a third reading and vote. If it passes, it will be sent to the Senate. However, First Nations in Ontario strongly oppose the bill's passage into law. Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
And that's your APTN News Brief for Thursday, February 8th. I'm Rick Harp.